Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the Red Shadow, and this is my video where I'm going to be talking about the Xbox game Showcase and Starfield Direct, talking about all the games that were shown, trailers, reveals, surprises, yada yada yada, and just a little bit of a talk about Starfield. I'm not going to talk about it for almost an hour like the show itself, or that part of the show went. After being kind of disappointed by the PlayStation Showcase and fairly content and happy with the Summer Game Fest, I went into the Xbox show with, relatively no expectations because I don't own an Xbox. I don't immediately think about Xbox for the style of games that I like to play. I still like to watch their shows, and I'm still rooting for them, 100% because I want to see them do good. First of all, I want to see them do good because I would like to want one of their consoles and play some of their games. But I also like the idea of them being a strong force in the industry to help PlayStation, be like, oh, we've got competition. Let's keep our game up, or in the case of here recently, step their game up. So I went into this expecting a few games that were shown and seeing some stuff that really excited me. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get started. The show started off with a trailer for Fable. Now, we've known for a while that Playground Games, the developers behind the Forza Horizon series, were doing this new Fable, and I thought, that's interesting. Obviously, they can make a beautiful game, but they do racing. What are they going to know about RPGs and fantasy style stuff? So we finally got a trailer for it, and I can see that after watching that trailer, it looks like it would be a good game. It looks like it could be very, very fun. The graphics in this trailer were really, really cool. Now, going into this, Xbox said there would be no all CG trailers, which was a bit of a problem, especially with the PlayStation Showcase. And in general, people want to see gameplay, see stuff that's indicative of what they will actually play when they get that game in their hands. So Xbox said there would only be in-game, in-engine, or a combination of those two and some CG in their trailers, but nothing would be CG only. Then this trailer came up, and in my opinion, it looked like a CG only trailer, but apparently some of the scenes near the end were more indicative of gameplay. I'm just going to say this now. When that trailer was over with, I was like, it said Fable. It didn't look or feel like Fable to me. I had somebody on Facebook, I believe, say, what about that didn't look like Fable? It's British humor. They kick chickens. Okay, cool. But there's a lot of British humor out there in the world. Fucking Link kicks and antagonizes chickens. It's a look and aesthetic about the Fable games that I've played. I've never beat a Fable game, but I've played both Fable The Lost Chapters, few hours, handful of hours, and Fable 2, I think I've put a few more hours into it than the first Fable. But when I see those games and when I play those games, they look and feel like a Fable game. I'm sure Playground Games wants to modernize this. They want to update graphics and gameplay and all of that. I just thought that there was something that was lost about it. That goofy humor that's not even just a British thing, but it was just a staple of what I believe it's Lionhead Studios did those original couple of games. What they did with that was not, it was absent in this. That doesn't mean that I think it's bad. It just didn't feel like Fable to me. So we'll just see. We'll see what happens when it comes along. But it was a nice, strong opening. It once again, right off the bat, Xbox said, hey, you know how we have all these studios? Don't worry about the Activision Blizzard acquisition right now, but let's just think about all these other studios that we've brought in over the last 4 or 5 years. A lot of them are working on games. What do they have? Boom, Fable, right off the bat. PlayStation failed to do that, in my opinion, during their showcase. So it was already starting strong for Xbox. And the next thing they showed was South of Midnight, a cool looking game. This one definitely looked like it was an all CG, at least CG-like trailer. So I wanted to point this out. Xbox kind of skirted around their own established rules. You don't want CG trailers? All of our trailers will be in-game, they'll be in-engine, or there'll be a combination of in-game or in-engine and CG, but nothing CG only. Then they did Fable, which apparently had some gameplay, and they did South of Midnight, which nothing about that looked like it was gameplay. Just because you can do in-game or in-engine footage that's not CG, if your trailer still looks like a CG trailer, if it's still playing out like a cinematic with no gameplay, that's the thing. That's the thing that the gamers want. They want to actually see HUD. They want to see, oh, somebody's got a controller in their hand and they're playing the game now. But that's not the poo-poo what Compulsion Games showed with this trailer of South of Midnight. Compulsion Games being the folks that did We Happy Few and something else before that. I've played We Happy Few and I was like enjoying it, but I got stuck on something that I didn't think I could get past without having to like restart my game, and that turned me off to playing it, and I haven't went back to it, but I will eventually. So this game looks very, very cool. It's undead blues musician, a lot of stop motion type stuff, very cool art style. It's very interesting, but it'll be even more interesting to kind of actually see what that game looks like in motion. Then, well, not a surprise for me. Like, I knew that Ubisoft and Massive was working on a Star Wars game, but we got to see it without really knowing, hey, this was going to show up today, and it's called Star Wars Outlaws. It looks very like it's about a bounty hunter named Vess. I don't think that this article even mentions her name. Yeah, it just says bounty hunter. Her name was Vess, Ness, something like that. And she had this little furry animal companion. And it just showed off a little bit of tone of it. It also was very, very much was one of these CG trailers. It's not CG apparently, but it didn't show gameplay. But the nice thing was, at the end of the trailer, they then said, hey, tune in tomorrow to the Ubisoft Showcase where you'll get a gameplay deep dive. And they did. They showed like 10 or 12 minutes of actual gameplay. That's what we wanted to see from those first couple of games. That Ubisoft Showcase was kind of a trash fire, but there were a few highlights, and Outlaws was one of them. So that's coming next year, and it should be pretty good, I hope. I haven't played Jedi Fallen Survivor or Jedi Fallen Order or Jedi Survivor yet, but I want to. But I'm glad to see some of these single-player Star Wars games coming along. Leave that Battlefront stuff behind. The next game that was shown was a weird one for me. From Thunder Lotus, the studio that did Spiritfarer, a game that I have played but not beat, but a very fun game. They've went back to their combat roots, apparently, and come out with this game that has 33-player co-op, and it's sort of a battling, raiding multiplayer game, and that's about it. Like it doesn't do a thing for me, but good for them. I hope people enjoy that game. Then Payday 3 was shown, another online, multiplayer game, heist thing. Payday series has been around for a while. I've seen some gameplay footage of it. Looks cool, but not my deal. Multiplayer games, not going to do much for me. That game is coming in September. Then the leak was true. There was a leak about a couple of Persona games. The Atlas Instagram page put this stuff up early and then took it down. A remake of Persona 3 is coming called Persona 3 Reload. Even though this is an Xbox presentation, it was revealed, I think, since then that it is coming to other platforms, at least like PlayStation and PC. Switch was briefly on the list, and then it was taken down. That may be a contractual thing that Nintendo has to say that. And now there's speculation going around that there'll be a Nintendo Direct this week or next, so I guess we'll see. But anyway, this looked cool. I've played some Persona 5, and it's fun enough. It didn't hook me enough to keep me playing on it. But this would probably be something I'd want to dip into as well. That comes in 2023. Also, by the way, a lot of the games in this show are day one with Game Pass, which is pretty cool, and I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. Another cool one that popped up after Persona 3 Reload was Avowed. This is the new RPG from Obsidian, the guys that did The Outer Worlds, which I thought was really fun. They did Fallout New Vegas. That's the one main Fallout game since 3 that I haven't got to play yet, but I've heard nothing but good things about it. I believe they had something to do with one of the South Park RPG games, or maybe both. These guys have been around for a long time, but now they're an Xbox first party, and Avowed is really cool, and apparently it takes place in the Pillars of Eternity universe. It's sort of a spin-off or whatever, but not a top-down JRPG, but more of a first-person top-down RPG, not a JRPG, but just a top-down RPG into a first-person RPG. I thought it looked really, really cool. I saw some people complaining about the way that it looked rough and all that. First of all, it's not a final product that you're seeing in the trailer, but I think we've seen with games like Skyrim that a first-person RPG can be done and done well. So that one is exciting to me, comes in 2024. Then we had an announcement that it's a perfect collaboration, but it's in a game that doesn't really do anything for me. But it's Sea of Thieves getting a Monkey Island crossover. It's called Sea of Thieves: The Legend of Monkey Island. Guybrush Threepwood is in there with the original voice actor and lots of other characters from Monkey Island. That's coming July 20th. It's free. Apparently, whenever they have this, they had one with Pirates of the Caribbean a couple years ago. These are really decent, like story-based missions to do, and they're free if you own the game. So, interesting. Then they showed Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. A lot of people that I saw doing reactions couldn't figure it out at first that this is an actual brand new game. It's a new installment. It's not a continuation of the flight simulator from a couple of years ago that's still chugging along. This is going to be a brand new one that goes away from just get in a plane and fly around and actually gives you gives you flying occupations, aviation jobs, firefighting, hot air balloons, aerial construction, aerial or like plane races. We saw search and rescue missions, all kinds of cool stuff that you can do with helicopters and airplanes and whatnot that you wouldn't do if in the regular flight simulator, when I guess you're basically like, hey, I'm a pilot and I'm just flying from one location to another, or I'm flying around wherever. Not a game for me, but like I said, it's still very cool. And then they showed that in the current flight simulator, in November, you'll get to fly as an ornithopter from the new Dune movie series. So cool if you like either of those things. The next thing they showed was another trailer for Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. Now, this is a game that everybody's been highly anticipating. It's Xbox exclusive. The first game was on I think all consoles. I still haven't played it though, but I've heard lots of good things about it. The sequel is interesting. It's a bummer to me that it's locked on Xbox, but it looks like it should be good. There were a lot of people who were complaining though that this didn't show anything more than just a little like narrative type trailer. I was a little surprised we didn't see more gameplay, but I think last year we saw a pretty big gameplay style video. I don't think people should worry too much that this game isn't going to be good or isn't going to come out. And they did date it for next year. Then we saw Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. So this is the Ichiban installment of the new Like a Dragon, kind of like two main characters and storylines. Funny little trailer. This was no gameplay of any kind. It shows him waking up on a beach and he's naked, and it would seem that he's in Hawaii or maybe California with people speaking in English. That's coming in early 2024. Fallout 76 stuff doesn't matter much to me. New Capcom game called Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess was shown. Weird, different. Had people thinking it was Onimusha, but it's definitely not. It looked neat. I need to see some gameplay to understand if it's more action game or if it's going to be more story. But yeah, it's something new from Capcom right in the middle of them dropping all this other stuff. Street Fighter 6, Resident Evil 4 remake, then they dropped this. They're becoming a prolific and a much better company than they were a few years back. Forza Motorsport, turning that into live service, and they just showed some stuff about some cars. I don't know what else to say about that. Game's coming October 10th. New expansion or whatever to Elder Scrolls Online, Necrom. Would love for that to be a game I could play. I played some of it, but it was just so weird to be in an Elder Scrolls world with a bunch of other people running around. Overwatch 2, some sort of reveal trailer for story stuff, new game modes, whatever, new character tease, comes in August. Overwatch 2 has a lot of controversy right now. It's not my kind of game anyway. Then we saw the other part of the Atlas leak, Persona 5 Tactica. Persona 5 characters in a chibi art style and a tactics game. Cool. I don't care for tactics stuff, but for those that do, there you go. Then throwing a lot of people off, they did a gameplay trailer for Starfield, but it was brief, and it once again advertised that there would be lots of Starfield at the end. Then we saw a game that I'm calling Jusant. Maybe it's Jusant, maybe it's Jusant, but it's a new game from Don't Nod. They got their Banishers game. They just put out Harmony, The Fall of Reverie. They're known for a couple of the Life is Strange games, and then they have this game that looks really cool. A lot of wall climbing with a stylized artistic character with a little, like a bug-looking creature in a backpack. We didn't really get much more beyond that, but we know what the gameplay looked like with a lot of climbing. Then we got a very cool looking. This one was an eye catcher for me. Still Wakes the Deep, a new sort of looks like a first person walking simulator with some thriller horror elements to it, and it comes from the Chinese Room. Excuse me. They did Amnesia, Machine for Pigs, Dear Esther, Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. So it's probably going to feel a lot like those games. Coming early 2024. Then we had a game that sort of had an art style like a Hi-Fi Rush or something like that. It's called Dungeons of Hinterberg. It looked like it had some combat, some skating vibes, some puzzle solving. It looked neat. I would definitely check it out if I had a chance. Coming out next year. Trailer for Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty, the new DLC or expansion or whatever for it. We got more Keanu Reeves. We got Idris Elba joining the cast. I really enjoyed my time playing it. I've played through it twice. I battled with the bugs and didn't really experience anything too bad. This is all current gen, as in not coming to PS4 where I played it. But whenever I get a PS5, I'm getting PS5 version of Cyberpunk, playing it and playing the new expansion. That expansion is coming September 26th of this year, and that'll just be super fun to go back into that world. Then we saw Cities Skylines 2, a new SimCity city builder type game. Looks cool. Those always feel like something like, oh, I got to play that and try it out. I mean, I played SimCity back in the day, like late 80s, early 90s. But I could never stick with them long enough to really make it into a game. It was a fun experience, and then I move on. So that feels like the kind of thing I would do with this if I even ever played it. Then we got one more Atlas announcement. This was not leaked. Metaphor ReFantasio. Apparently this is a game from people who worked on Persona like 3, 4, and 5, or 2, 3, and 4. And it looked very Persona or Shin Megami Tensei. I don't think this one would be for me. Just its look and feel didn't do much for me personally. We saw a game called Towerborn, another one that also didn't do much for me. It's from the Banner Saga developers. It's a co-op adventure game that looks very much like a side-scrolling beat 'em up. But I'm sure it'll do a lot for other people. But it was basically a skip for me. Then we saw probably my game of the show, aside from Starfield, it's Clockwork Revolution from In Exile Entertainment. I love, and I'm going to be off screen for a moment, but I love In Exile for this little game right here, The Bard's Tale. Excuse the dust. But this little game is a game that I really enjoy from the PS2 days, from In Exile. And it's a funny game that's meant to kind of be a spoof on the top-down RPGs that had been out at that time, like your Baldur's Gates and your Neverwinter Nights, and I suppose even Diablo and whatnot. And it just proved that they could make a fun game, but their humor and all that kind of stuff was a standout for me now. I don't think this game looks like it's going to be loaded with humor. It looks very Bioshock Infinite to me. Steampunk, first-person guns, powers and abilities, ability to manipulate time. I love their change the past, control the future, and then at the end of the trailer it said, where everybody else was like out 2023, 2024, theirs just said out in due time. So a nice little pun. Just looked fun to me. This one is like, if things work out for me, this would be a grab it day one kind of thing. So that got us close to the end of the show. Phil Spencer had come out. Oh yeah, a couple other things that In Exile did was Wasteland and Torment. I think that's Torment Tides of Numenera or whatever. Or it's Planescape Torment, or it's both. But anyway, they have a really good pedigree. So then Phil Spencer came out, kind of recapped the show, talked about a lot of the games that we saw from the first parties, third-party developers and partners, and then said, hey, we know that you've been desiring more memory space on the Series S. So out September 1st is a brand new black Series S with a 1 terabyte solid-state drive in it for $349. That's going to tie into something I'll have to say at the end here after I get through the last of this. But that was cool, looks nice. And yeah, I think that was it. They also said that there's more Series X's out there. The supply problems are going away. There's more available in the wild. I don't think Xbox had that big of a problem compared to the PS5 over the last couple of years during COVID, but obviously they have to say that. Gotta say what they gotta say. And then they parlayed over to the Starfield Direct. Now this was a 45-minute presentation. I'm not going to get super deep into it. I'm just going to give you this. If it wasn't for Clockwork Revolution, Starfield would have been my game of this whole entire, nearly 2-hour show. Starfield looks fucking amazing. It looks super awesome. There's so much stuff to do in that game that a guy like me, I'm not the type to just go bury myself for hours in customization and ship building and outpost building and designing my gun, designing my character, exploring 1,000+ planets. But I'm the kind of guy who still wants to go into that world, make a character, do the storyline, do the quests, get lost in some of that kind of stuff, explore space, get into some dogfights, steal some ships, kill some people, steal some of their junk, make a base or two here or there, feel like I'm going to do something cool, and then it comes out looking like shit, and I just sort of get discouraged. As the way I was in Fallout 4, I was like stoked about the base building element. I was also a little bit more naive about that kind of stuff even just 4 or 5 years ago. When I played Fallout 4, I hardly could do anything in the base building that nothing, I never felt any, like, ooh, that was awesome, I did really good. I always felt like, yeah, that looked like shit. And then I would stop doing that part of it. I think that's what would happen with Starfield, but I would at least give it a try. And I feel like this is the kind of game that is worth spending a bunch of time in it, at least trying, seeing how it goes. But it's also worth, in my opinion, possibly, and this is a big change for me, but possibly getting something like that new black Series S with the 1 terabyte solid state drive, and getting Game Pass, and I'm a physical game collector. I like having a game on the shelf, take it off, pop it out, pop the disc in, play the game whenever I want to, not be burdened by internet connection or any of that kind of stuff. But for some of this stuff that Xbox showed in this showcase, this was the best showcase of the whole entire, week of Summer Game Fest, or the couple of weeks if you go back to the PlayStation Showcase. This was the best show of them all. They told us all of these first party things. They gave us a good idea this year, next year, whatever. They showed gameplay in quite a few things. Some of those trailers were problematic, and they may not have been CG trailers, but they looked like CG trailers that didn't show gameplay. But they showed a lot of stuff that I would be interested in playing. And most of it was on Game Pass, as I brought up earlier. I get a Series S, and I just bite the bullet for this particular console, and I get the Game Pass, and I play all those games when they first come out, and I get Game Pass for a month or a couple of months or maybe a whole year, and then I play all these really cool games, and then when I'm done, I just feel like, cool, I got to experience that stuff. I'm not going to stress about putting the shit over here. I'm not going all digital. That's never going to happen. But these are games I want to play. And these are from a lot of the first-party studios that used to not be first-party studios that Xbox gobbled up and pulled away from my console of choice. That sucks. I hate it. And maybe some people would say I shouldn't reward them by buying into theirs. But I want to play the games, man. I want to play games, and I want to feel good. I want to have a good, fun experience with that. I'm not going to fight against that idea by not getting an Xbox, not playing those games, not doing Game Pass, and cheating myself out of those experiences. I know, love and play what you do have, and don't worry about the things that you don't have, but still, I can buy their console, and I can have those experiences, and I can play that. That's something that I should be able to do. I don't feel like that's a big deal. I'm not compromising any of this that comes from my feeling of the physical media. The games are worth having and owning and playing and passing on to somebody else down the road. But I when I think about Xbox One and Xbox Series S and X games, I don't feel like when you get one of their games on a disc that's really anything tangible. That may be a stupid notion of my own, a preconceived notion. And maybe I'm just, gaslighting myself into thinking that. Why do I have this PlayStation loyalty and not any to Xbox? Really, though, the only loyalty that I want to have, is to the games. To play these games that people put their hard work and soul and their passion into. And I wish my stomach would stop making me almost burp. But, I've come to the conclusion here in the last couple of weeks. I could get a Series S, and I know it's going to sacrifice on the visuals, the resolution, the performance, maybe. But I don't. Once again, it's another one of those things where I don't think it's enough to say, no, you need to get an X, and that's $500 compared to $300 for the standard S or $350 for this new S. I don't know. It's a work in progress / a thought in progress, but that's kind of the way I'm leaning. If things come back into a positive standing for me in the next few months. By the time September rolls around, when this new Series S comes out, or when Starfield comes out, if I'm able to, then I think there's a likelihood that within the next, let's say, 12 months, I'll have a Series S and some Game Pass and spend some time with some Avowed, some Starfield, some Clockwork Revolution, maybe the Fable game, who knows, South of Midnight, all of these games that were shown here that did it for me. This show that was pretty dope. All right, well, I guess that's it. I don't want to waste too much more time. Like I said, Starfield was just badass. I can't distill 45 minutes of Starfield down into anything other than I want to play it now. So, if you want to check it out, then hey, go seek out the trailer or the full presentation on YouTube or wherever, and see if that game is for you. I think that game is going to be for so many different kinds of people. The IGN meme that, it has something for everyone. Well, this is a game that has something for everyone. I really do believe so. The combat, the first-person shooting combat is up there with like the kind of games that do that really well. No VATS type system, but just like really good, crisp, clean first-person shooting. Although it's also can be played in third person. Lots of worlds to explore. I could talk about Starfield for a long time, but it doesn't matter until we know more about it. But this is going to be a Bethesda game, a Bethesda-style RPG like none other, and it will probably have a lot of aspects of Bethesda games in it, but it's just going to be more polished, bigger, more ambitious than any of them, and hopefully the bugs aren't too crazy, but then again, that's a part of the experience. I'll die on that hill. Bethesda bugs are a part of the experience. Okay, I'm going to shut up now. Thanks for watching this, and we'll see you, I imagine, probably for my game pickups here in about a week and a half. All right, we'll see you then.